Hey everybody, Dutch Sense here. 2:45 a.m. Central Time on Monday, March 23rd, 2015. And this just broke last night. I'm going to bring you a breaking news story, guys. This is a summation of everything that I've ever told you about, now proved and now patented by Boeing. So let me just go ahead and read this to you here. Boeing patents Star Wars-style force fields. Aircraft and military manufacturer Boeing has been granted a patent on a system that is designed to prevent explosion shock waves from harming a target. Now, wait till you hear this, guys. A new patent granted to aircraft defense and security company Boeing is taking its cues from science fiction. Just like the glowing energy shields seen protecting troops, machines, and even spacecraft in Star Wars and Star Trek, the design, named Method and System for Shockwave Attenuation via Electromagnetic Arc, uses energy to deflect potential damage. As it is described, the system is not designed to prevent direct impacts from shells or shrapnel. Rather, it is designed to protect a target such as a vehicle or a building from the damaging effects of shockwaves from nearby impact. The patent is for a shockwave attenuation system, which consists of a sensor capable of detecting a shockwave generating explosion and an arc generator that receives the signal from the sensor to ionize a small region, producing a plasma field between the target and the explosion using lasers, electricity, and microwaves. This small plasma field would differ from the surrounding environment in temperature, density, and composition. This would provide a buffer between the target and the explosion that would hinder the shockwaves from reaching and damaging the target. There it is. Okay, we've got our transmitter up here on the top of the Humvee. Actually, we have two radio waves going out. That's actually having that scalar effect that we've been talking about now for the last several years, where they generate energy at a distance using high-powered systems. Now, this plays into everything that we've been talking about for, well, now the last several years. We've proved, and science has proved this in experiments in laboratories, that S-band radar does the same thing at a high altitude where the atmosphere and the upper layers of the atmosphere are actually conductive. Electricity conducts at higher altitudes. So when they introduce these high-power systems into the atmosphere, it induces lightning, rotation, heating, and plasma generation. Now this proves it. Okay, they're talking about, again, using this as a buffer. Now I'm going to show you something here. This was one of the documents that was sent to me by the U.S. Navy in my Freedom of Information Access request. Artificial ionospheric plasma clouds using HAARP. And what they did is they used HAARP in conjunction with radar to generate these giant plasma bubbles in the atmosphere, multiple kilometers wide. The same thing that they're talking about doing now on a small basis to protect you from a shock wave. Now, they already found that when they did this in the atmosphere, it reflected energy. They used this like a mirror so they could beam a signal up off the plasma heated air in the sky, and then it would bounce back down to another point on the Earth without ever having to actually go to a satellite up in space to beam a signal over the horizon, for instance, without having to go up into space. Pretty big deal on that. But what they also did was they did laboratory experiments using microwaves to generate plasma inside what looks like just a small version of the NexRad tower, even with the hexagonal shapes in here. If you go look at the NexRad towers, a lot of them have that paneling, of course, which is designed to aid in the attenuation of the signal. So they're talking about doing this now. Boeing patenting it, guys. So the days of denial are over, and I've got a whole series of posts on my website. This has happened again. It's picked up again this year, guys. Here's an example just from last night, and we've got a only spot within 150, 200 miles. The only spot in the storm to get damaging winds was right above the high-powered transmitter. So now the science is in. They're going to be applying this to vehicles, guys. They're going to be using vehicle-mounted systems to generate plasma at a nearby distance from the transmitter to deflect explosions. Well, that means there's a physical process at work here, guys, at ground level. Think about it. ground level physical process, short range from the transmitter, able to block explosions. Well, if you're able to block an explosion with a transmitter, you can also create a rotation. You can also possibly even create an explosion at a distance. This is scalar technology, the crossing of two beams to form energy at a distance. Now, this violates the square inverse law completely. Using two transmitters, you can generate energy at a distance out of the ether, out of the air. But it's really coming from your transmitter. You're just targeting it at an area in the sky that has friction. And where the two areas meet, the friction causes electron cascade, which then forms into plasma discharge, lightning. And if you really want to get curious, you can go watch Dr. Michio Kaku talk about generating lightning using lasers and high-powered systems to do weather modification for things like weddings and sporting events and stuff like that. They're on the news talking about that last year. Meanwhile, we've got all the skeptics and deniers, all the people who said it wasn't possible. There's a whole boatload of people who said that this was impossible. It's crazy. The fact that this comes out now, I mean, this proves everything that I ever told you guys. Seriously, the article on CNET shows it. So let's just go back over and take a quick look one more time. Here's the article. I'll put a link down below to it. Boeing has patented it. And let's just go ahead and click on the method and system. There we go. This is taking us to the U.S. Patent Office. Okay. Filed on May 30th, 2012, right at the height of when I was going through it all with everybody, where they were denying that plasma could be induced by microwaves. Now, here it is. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these images, see what we got on here. Okay, here's our patent. All right. And let's go ahead and look at the full pages. Okay. Sensor, arc generator, transient medium, that would be the air, and the explosion in between the two. Look at that. Okay. There we go. Two transmitters. Here's the transmitter on the top, transmitter on the bottom. Both are pointing at a specific area, generating that scalar, that energy at a distance, out of the air. Look at that. So we've got our... wow. This really, guys, I mean, quite frankly, look at what they're talking about here. Creating the arc between 2 points, which protects you from an incoming blast, incoming wave. You could also use this. Look, here it is, a diagram of the, I guess that's the antenna that would be on the door. Here's our shock wave coming from the left. Here's our force field. And this would be an electromagnetic force field going from point to point. Wow. So the scalar, I suppose, would be generated at the antenna, not at the distance. It would just show up at the distance. Does that make sense? You know, guys, again, this is new science. This is stuff that they are discovering that we've been talking about trying to understand. It would make more sense to me that the scalar would occur in the antenna, in the transmission itself, not at the distance, and that we're just seeing the effect of it at the distance. But really, the magic happens in between point to point like any other electrical transmission. We're just talking about an electrical transmission, an arc that goes between 2 points. This is no more different than touching two wires together, okay? But they're doing it through the air. So a scalar could be called touching two wires together, getting them close enough that the arc happens. That would be pulling energy out of the air technically, and that would be induced by a transmission. And so here it is. An arc generator generating plasma that deflects an incoming blast. That's big news, guys. So look at all these pictures. I'll put a link down to the patent down below. Of course, if you guys want to go through and read this, this is going to be some extensive reading. But, you know, this is why I look into things. If I would have listened to everybody a few years ago and said, oh, it's impossible, there's no such thing as plasma at a distance from a transmitter. Well, okay, that's okay, wrong, obviously. And all the talking heads, all the radar guys, all the energy guys who said, oh, you know, I'm an electrician, I'm an energy professional, and none of this is possible, you're just talking about science fiction. Well, at some point, some things in science fiction become science fact once they're proved, once they're tested in the laboratory, once they're replicated. Science fiction is no more than thinking outside of the box about what is possible and writing it down. So Boeing already patented it here. Okay, here's our arc generator. Here's our plasma field. Deniers deny that. Cheers.